Funding for Minnesota Hockey Land of 10,000 Rinks is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
So this weekend the temperatures have finally dropped enough for us to begin what we call the 100-hour flood. Parents volunteer and sign up for shifts around the clock to put down water and let it freeze so that we can build up a great base layer of ice for this season of hockey. Today, beginning today and then throughout the weekend, we'll just be flooding around the clock.
My name is KUHLMAN. We are here flooding at Congan Park Hockey, making ice for the kids to play on. Overall, it went pretty well. Put a lot of water down and you can hear it freezing now. There's lots of volunteer hours going on and there's a lot of water being put down. And it starts off slow, but once it starts building up, it comes together nicely. And it's impressive how fast it actually comes. Coming here and doing what I'm doing now as a father instead of a kid out here playing on the ice, I get a lot bigger respect for what my dad did. You know, you see all the work that actually goes into it just so we can go out and play as kids.
My name is Eric Gustafson and we are at the Glen Avon hockey rink. Right now we are working on getting our ice down for the season. We've got a good culture going on here where people understand about doing the work and getting things done, keep the cost down.
There's something about the hockey culture here in Duluth that seems different than other places that we've lived. It definitely feels like more of a community. It's more accessible to a lot of different people. Our winters are obviously pretty long up here. So I always say that if you don't find a way to sport your way through the winter, you might end up being pretty miserable. So it's nice what we, can find an activity where the kids can be active outside and, enjoy the winter and enjoy themselves and their friendships and at the same time be part of a team.
I have 3 sons. My oldest is playing now, and I did it growing up. I grew up in the Duluth area playing on these same rinks, and my dad did it. It's kind of a way of life for us, and it puts a smile on my kid's face and every other kid's face out there. So that's why we do it, for kids.
Well, the main thing for the kids is that it's fun. You know, it's playing a sport. It's getting outside, making friends, and having fun. You know, if any of them turn into good hockey players, that's just a bonus, but that's not the important part of it. It's northern Minnesota. It's hockey's a big thing around here. Yeah, it's a good way to spend your winter. In my opinion, it beats sitting inside.
I'm one of many of the parents in the Duluth Hockey Association that grew up here, so every time I go to another rink, there's 10 or 15 more faces that I haven't seen for 20 years, and it's fun. You know, you get out here on a good night and tons of kids playing around and having a good time. Families here, everybody loves it. We love hockey here in Duluth. That's kind of the long and short of it right there.
I think there's just never been a time he didn't want to play. My husband, he played hockey, so I think AJ had his first pair of skates when he was probably 3.5.
I come here almost every day. I'm Alex Kazel, but some people call me AJ, and I'm in 6th grade. I remember like maybe around the first year, because the first time was kind of tough. I remember I fell the first step on the ice, but since there it was all really fun.
He dreams of that. Would love to play for the Bulldogs someday, and I mean, hockey is his life this time of year anyway.
It's just fun to play. It's a game that'll keep you busy. It's kind of like a hobby. It's just I want to do it all the time.
I'm Keith Halvorson. I've been with the ESCO Hockey Association for a few years now. I'm currently the ESCO Hockey Association president of the board. We've been growing every year for a small town of ESCO. We've been growing. Now we have almost 70 kids strong. And last year alone we had 30% increase. So we've got 5 Mite 1 teams and 2 Mite 2 teams, and we look forward to growing every year.
The parents are the ones that are out here when it's 10 below zero and they're flooding the rinks. The moms are committing 2, 3, 4 nights, during the season when they're working concessions. I mean, it's all volunteer. You know, you've got the tournaments, and I mean, it's a huge volunteer commitment. I mean, you can see it here, the range of ages of kids who are skating and how well they play with each other. And I tell him now, as one of the older kids, of just remember how good they were to you, and you make sure you're that good to the younger kids, of just letting them get involved and play. And yeah, it's something special.
It's really the beauty of rat rink hockey is you get little kids, you get older kids, and every kid is able to play with children of different skill levels, and that's where they grow. They're challenged in some times, and then they get to help out the little kids, and it's got a lot of learning benefits for kids' skill development. So the more you get that, you could be playing on a team with kids aging from ranges 5 up to 13, and that really helps all the kids grow. In some moments they're a teacher, in other moments they're the student.
I mean, now that he's playing in Cloquet, they're for the most part playing indoors, but last year they got to play in a couple of outdoor tournaments, and I just had to laugh because, at the ripe old age of 10, he's like, oh, this brings back so many good memories to be skating outside.
You get to bond with your friends. It'll build relationships. It's just really fun to play.
There's something magical about outdoor hockey.
I liken it to like a field of dreams, like in the baseball movie, where this ideal little baseball field in the middle of nowhere. Well, here we have an ideal hockey rink that's iconic in so many ways. Well, my name is Patrick Francisco. I grew up in the west side of Duluth, went to Denfeld High School, played hockey at UMD, love this community, love Duluth. I'm a volunteer in the Heritage Center project. There were, first of all, lots of folks involved in this effort. You know, the impetus was the burning down of Peterson Arena near Wheeler Field. And then the idea just kind of grew. It grew into a bigger concept, a concept of historic renovation of these historic buildings here at the Essentia Health Duluth Heritage Sports Center. It grew into economic development and broadening our mission that went beyond hockey, included the Boys and Girls Club and sports camps and so forth.
It was a totally volunteer effort that put this thing together, and what we wanted to do is not only have an ice sheet for the kids to skate on, the high school teams to skate on, but we wanted to celebrate the heritage of hockey in Duluth. I'm Jerry Freiberger, and I was introduced to hockey in about 1943. It's a first-class facility. It's got a lot of warmth, and of course the heritage adds tremendous to it.
When you put 500 and 600 people in here, 1,000 people in here, it's a raucous environment, and the kids have a lot of fun, and the players enjoy it, and the community likes it, and it's turning out the way we hope.
You know, grandmothers and grandfathers come in here and see themselves in these pictures, and they see their grandchildren now out here. It's pretty special.
We want to intentionally show intergenerational connectedness. So a kid today, a young kid, a high school kid, understands that people came before them to help pave the way so that they can have the things that they enjoy. In my lifetime, which is quite a few years, I don't remember a project like this being done without tax dollars. So it's pretty remarkable. And the community needs to be proud of themselves because it was a collaborative effort.
My dad was in the iron ore business. So during the Depression, there was no money to have a youth hockey program. And then during the war, there was nobody to coach. So he and Ray Peterson and Rip Williams were the ones who said, let's get these kids back on the ice. And so they built rinks, you know, outside rinks. That's all we had.
Our Mount Rushmore across there with the Freiberger family and the Williams family from the Central Hillside and the Peterson family from the west side of Duluth. That brings this community together. This is a total Duluth community center, and it's for the whole community.
My father would not recognize the quality of play, and neither would Ray Peterson or Rip Williams. It's just been fantastic.
You come and look at our college wall, and you see all these kids who took and used hockey to pursue education. And we have hundreds of those kids that played on some pond or rink in Duluth that went on to wear a jersey from some college. So when you come through here and you look at all of these Olympic and pro athletes and Hobie Baker winners and whatever there are Duluth kids, you know, hopefully that inspires kids.
We focus so much at the professional level now, but that isn't the real value of hockey. The value is teamwork, sportsmanship, and rules, and they build that enthusiasm and discipline to get in shape, go out there and be part of the team, contribute to the part of the team, and be a wonderful teammate and encourage your teammates.
As Blake comes back to full strength, their penalty kill does the job. It stays 1-0. Now a chance in for Proctor. Hermitage shot, score! It's a score for Sophie McGovern.
That's just what they needed.
I think the biggest change is that girls are starting younger now. You know, we have a couple of U10 teams and some U12 teams, and when we first started, we were walking through the junior high and senior high halls trying to get people to play hockey.
This year we're like a lot deeper of a team than we have been in the past. Like, I started playing on the team when I was in 8th grade, but like that doesn't happen anymore. Our youngest person on the team now is a sophomore in high school. So it's just like, it shows how much it's come in the last like 5 years that I've been on the team.
And I came home and the boys had been talking about hockey, and I was in kindergarten and I didn't really think anything of it, and then I came home and I'm like, Mom, Dad, I want to play hockey. And they're like, no you don't. And I'm like, yeah I do. And so they let me try it, and I've been playing ever since. Well, I used to live in Babbitt, so up on the range, and my brother and sister played, and I never wanted to play. I used to figure skate, and then one day my mom and dad just put me on the ice, and I loved it.
My dad loves hockey. My mom was a little torn that I was giving up gymnastics because that was I'm the only girl of the family, so that was like the girly sport. But both my parents are super supportive and have been all the way up.
It's a different brand of hockey. You know, there's no checking. There's a lot of contact. If you watched the game, you'd be surprised. But the big thing is there's a lot of puck movement.
Hockey is hockey. It's played the same way. The only difference to me is that boys can check, girls can't. Girls hockey is still physical. I mean, some people are like, oh, like girls hockey, you can't do anything, like it's no contact. I wouldn't say that. I would say it's still contact. It's just not a full-on check. People still do hit each other, so.
You know, they can angle into the boards. That's legal to do, and that's done. And there's contact in front of the net. But it's more of a puck movement. I've had people tell me before that they really enjoy watching the girls' game because of all the puck movement.
When people come to games who haven't seen girls hockey, they're really surprised at the pace of the game. Like, especially in the last few years, it has like picked up, and it's really become like a really good game to watch.
I love the competitive aspect of it. I'm a competitive person, and so to be able to play a sport that is so competitive and you get rewarded, obviously, like you score goals. Yeah, we have a really strong team. This is the deepest team that we've had in a while. Good skating. We all are really good friends, so that like makes it really easy off ice and on ice. There's good chemistry.
We have 3 lines. A lot of girls' high school teams don't have 3 lines. They play 2 lines. So when we play 3 lines against them, that's an advantage for us.
I think this is probably the best team I've been on for girls hockey. We have a lot of depth going on, so I think we can make it pretty deep into the playoffs.
Last year, going to state tournament, that was a huge thing for, I would say probably almost every one of them out there right now. That's how it's just the experience of a lifetime. Yeah, that's the goal this year, is to get back down there and do better than we did last year.
Playing in the state hockey tournament in Minnesota, there's no other thing like it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
The Freiburgers are obviously huge in Duluth with hockey. And they started Glen Avon when the Woodland kids wouldn't let him play anymore. So he went back to his dad and said, we got to start our own rink. And that's how they started Glen Avon. It was a kid's idea.
My parents were very much into education, and very much. They were a little concerned that all we did was hunt, fish, and play hockey. And so
unfortunately, they were right.
Yeah, we thought that was all right. We had a rink just across the street from where we lived on 1941 Waverly Avenue, and that rink is still going. This is the 70th year. And all the neighborhood kids skated there. We had nothing organized. We were just kind of playing, I call sandlot hockey. You know, it was a shinny. We would, you know, we didn't choose up sides. We didn't have any boards. We just skated on the rink and had a grand time. Then I got a call, and we think it was 1950, from a good friend, Billy Beaudry, who skated on the rink there. And Billy said, "Say, how would you guys like to be part of a team in the city leagues?" My mother said, "Your team has to have a jersey." And so she went to Sears and Roebuck, and for $1.50 bought red jerseys. And then she took felt. She bought it J.C. Penney, and cut out in a cursive manner, Glen Avon. It just started out a little spark. One call from a guy named Bill Beaudry, it started the whole thing. It's just amazing. My dad was an All-American hockey player at Dartmouth, and so he showed us a lot of things. We all looked up to our dad because my dad was a very low-key guy, but he in a very nice way taught us how the game should be played. It was very disciplined. You skate your position, you pass the puck forward, and you share that puck, and it was so a lot of teamwork.
You can't back check unless you move those legs. You can't score goals unless you shoot.
And he had a classmate at Dartmouth, And he said, Bob, why don't, Minnesota has lots of hockey teams. Do you have a club that would like to play in the National Pee Wee Championship? He said, sure. He said, you know, our teams are pretty good. And he said, well, that's fine. He said, we'll bring a team out. And none of us have been as far as Minneapolis, St. Paul. So we got on the train in Duluth and went to Chicago and took the New York Central from Chicago into New York. And we were all upset when we got in a taxi cab that the guy turned the handle and it said 25 cents. And we argued with the guy, you haven't gone anyplace yet and you charge us 25 cents. So a bunch of hayseeds from Minnesota. In Madison Square Garden, we won 3 games, which is what the championship was. It was certainly quite a thrill to be skating in what we considered the Taj Mahal of rinks. We had one huge advantage, and that we skated all winter long. The East Coast schools, they could buy ice time on artificial ice, which was not readily available to the junior teams and the Pee-wees. And so when we got out there, they didn't have a chance. We came at them like a bunch of banshees because all we did was play hockey, and that's what we did. And they couldn't believe that we could skate like that. Oh, it was really big. I mean, this is the first national championship that I think a Duluth team had won, unless you go way back into the rowing years when the crews were doing so well here. But after we got off the train in Duluth, we were all put on, each player or 2 players, 3 players, sat on the back of a convertible as we went through the city of Duluth. And the crowds met us, and it was overwhelming. We couldn't believe that we had gone to New York and won this thing, and that was enough. But now all these folks met us, and Mayor Johnson was there.
I got the key to the city and a really nice trophy. The neat thing is now Glen Avon is using that as their logo.
Glen Avon Hockey and the parents, coaches have done just a wonderful job. Lots of kids playing hockey, and it's a real credit to the support that they get.
Ice polo was a popular sport in the 90s in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Duluth, and they held tournaments yearly in the sport through 1899.
And it was the mining people who actually brought in a professional team into Everett. And this was right after World War I. Brought in all Canadians to play professional hockey in a little town of 6,000 people. And they competed against towns like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Kansas City, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Duluth was a great strong point. The Duluth Hornets, the old amateur team here, and they played the great teams from the Iron Range who were, you know, there wasn't college scholarships at the time. There was college hockey. It didn't mean anything to these guys.
And the Duluth Zephyrs, I remember, was coached by a fellow by the name of Laurie Scott, who played with the New York Rangers for 8 years. And the only local player on that team was the late Rip Williams. And the Duluth Zephyrs at that time were the farm team for the Minneapolis Millers. And the Minneapolis Millers was a farm team for the Boston Bruins.
Duluth hockey was good, but Iron Range hockey was unbelievable. And you had Cliff Thompson at Eveleth, and he coached a few players who went on to play a little, like John Masich, John Matcheffs, Finnegan, you know, all these great players.
Well, Cliff Thompson was a native of Minneapolis, and he was my first and only hockey coach I had. He was a terrific individual. He was an individual not only as a coach, but as a person who could inspire you.
In Eveleth, they had all these great guys who went on to the NHL. Yeah. You know, John Mariucci.
I played with John in high school 1 year, then 1 year in JC, and never did play. When I was coaching at UMD, we did play Minnesota. John did a good job coaching at Minnesota and had a very favorable record.
Connie Pleben was a great guy. He coached the Olympic teams.
and he really did a great job at UMD. They might not have even had interscholastic hockey at UMD. Might have never grown above the intramural stage without Connie KUHLMAN's guidance.
The year I came down, that's when probably the move was being made to upgrade the hockey at the university level. I visualized that when I first took the job. I felt that we could go into the Western Collegiate Hockey Conference. And in fact, my communication with the provost at the time was that we were in a hotbed of hockey. We had a lot of talent right here in Duluth. We had up the Iron Range, up on the border, Fort Francis. We had the Lakehead, Winnipeg. We had Fort Francis and Port Arthur, Fort William. So we had a nucleus of talent to pick from, and I felt that we could compete with anybody in the Western Conference.
Ralph Romano came in. He replaced Connie, and Connie went off and did his thing with the Olympic team and so forth, and was an icon in hockey. So Ralph Romano, he had a couple guys, pretty secret weapons, Keith Huffer Christensen, and Bruce McLeod, who became later the commissioner of the league for years, played on his wing. Pat Francisco was a captain. The second year they played in the WCHA, and that was when they opened the Duluth Arena. Of course, right away their big rival was Minnesota automatically, because UMD was the Duluth campus of the university, of course.
Our first game was against the hated Minnesota Golden Gophers, and we edged them 8-1. So I remember that pretty vividly.
Everyone assumed the Gophers were the big favorites, and UMD beat them 8-1, and Huffer had 6 assists. He skated around like the Pied Piper, and he'd have 5 Gophers chasing him, and then he passed to the goal mouth for a goal. Huffer was an amazing player, a little guy, 5'6", and just a magician with a stick. The 6 assists, by the way, still stands as the UMD all-time record for assists in a game. Probably, if the movie Hoosiers was going to be made about hockey, it would have to be about those Green Wave Coleraine teams. They had players from, like, I think it was 11 different towns. And Mike Antonovich from Calumet, and Mick Metzer, and the Pelusos, and I mean, it was an amazing story, and Bob Jernander pulled them all together. But these kids grew up in different little areas, so they'd have their own teams. They didn't have many players, but they were fierce rivals, and they hated each other. And they'd all go to Coleraine, where the high school was, the Greenway High School of Coleraine. And so they show up in the state tournament, and Mike Antonovich was about a 115-pound sophomore. Tiniest hockey player you ever saw in the state tournament. Greenway won the state title. He literally went under guys' arms, and it was amazing. He was a fabulous player. They came back and won it the next year when he was about a 130-pound junior. And the third year they would have won it again, but the goalie made, like, I think it was Doug Long, made 65 saves and set the record, and beat him in repeated overtimes. Gus Hendrickson, who had had a magical run he went to Grand Rapids and he put that whole program together. So he came in as coach, and he made a great inroads for getting the Iron Range players, and the Dan Lempes and the Mark Pavliches and some of those really great players from the range. And they got UMD kind of more localized instead of heading towards all Canadian. When they had a falling out, Gus went his separate way, and they hired Mike Surdich, one of the legendary stories in hockey. Ralph Romano didn't like Mike Surdich, so he hires him as interim coach. And Mike Surdich wins Coach of the Year in the WCHA. And the next year he wins it again. He won it the 3rd straight year.
I started with Mike his first year as a coach. I was a freshman. I think Mike's going to be ready for sainthood when the big guy calls to have us as his first class. But I'm blessed that I had Mike here, because Mike can just allow me to play and never put any restrictions on me offensively or defensively, or lack of defense. But that was the same way with Tommy and Curvers and Norm McIver, Matt Christensen. We were just able to go and play, and boy, it made a huge difference. When we won, I think, our first WCHA championship against Wisconsin here, I think that one right there was probably the biggest game, I think, in terms of getting it to that crescendo and getting the school and our hockey program over the hump and win a championship.
Then they went to the national tournament at Lake Placid, NCAA Final Four, but they lost in 4 overtimes in an unbelievable game where the puck was shot in the last minute. They're leading by a goal, and the puck hits the end boards and comes out in front of the net. And the guy has a tap in to tie the game, and they play 4 overtimes and they lose.
It was a great memory for 97 minutes and 10 seconds. The last second's the worst memory. Yeah, it was. I've never watched the game since. People go, "Why don't you watch the game?" I go, "Because I know the outcome."
But it was this fine shot by Gino Cavallini late in the 4th OT that gave the Falcons the NCAA Division I championship 5-4 over the Bulldogs.
They came back the next year and went to the Frozen Four again at Detroit and lost in 3 overtimes to RPI. Unbelievable.
Norm and I have talked, McIver and I have talked about it a few times. I mean, thinking we're a bounce away from being back-to-back national champions. And what you appreciate after 30-some years after is you realize how good a team we had.
They gave it to Billy Watson. Bingo, 4-4. He's the best there is in college hockey.
Those teams were the best teams UMD ever had. And they did establish UMD as an elite program, not just a good program, but an elite program. And they've stayed up there pretty well. But when they brought in Tom Curvers, he won Hobie Baker. And they brought in Bill Watson, he won Hobie Baker. And the next guy who should have won it, they had Norm McIver, should have well won it. And then they had a guy named Brett Hull.
The award itself was kind of in its infancy at the time. And the year before, Tom had won at Curvers and was very deserving of it. When I won it, it was like, it just absolutely stunned me. I was probably more surprised than anybody. We have 5 winners. We have the most in the country. I think we were known for that until we won that national championship in 11, and then it was so nice the next year Jack won the Hobie Baker Award, Conley, and it's something we're very proud of.
When you look at that, of all the great programs, some of the bigger schools, a lot of all the great players that have played, for us to have the most, I think it's pretty special to our program and certainly our university.
If you are a person of my vintage, you know that the game of hockey was played outdoors for most of us. Even some of the high school games back then were played on the outdoor rink. And then we started playing on the inside and at the curling club.
Big palatial, like a castle, big heavy rock place. And you can imagine how heavy a hockey arena is. The hockey rink was on the 2nd floor above the curling club. And you walked in, I'll never forget how as you walked in, the crackling smell of the radiators and the, people's freezing gloves sitting on the radiators. And then you walked into the rink and there was no heat. And it was natural ice and a very small rink.
For its antiquated type of feel, it was also very intimate. So if you ask fans, if you can find fans that still remember that, 2,000 people huddled around a little rink right in the middle of the game with no glass around the rink. I mean, they felt like they were part of the game.
You felt like you might be playing left wing when you were sitting in the stands, and no chicken wire around except on the ends.
Then my senior year was 1966 and 67. That's the beginning of the deck. And so our team opened the deck. We were the first team that played at the Duluth Entertainment Convention Center. That was like nirvana to us, that was pretty cool.
Fabulous. It set UMD apart because it was the best arena, and people here I don't think even appreciated it or realized it.
It probably wasn't until I got to high school and you started traveling more to some of these other buildings around there. It's just like all those buildings on the range where there's that 1, 2, 3, 4 very significant hockey people that you knew cut their teeth in those buildings. It can be a little bit intimidating walking into some of these places. Going back to like it was with the Hippodrome, knowing that some of these names that played in these places are really significant in the game of hockey.
At other arenas, the parents are all cynics and critics, and they know better than the coach, so they're always second guessing. At Eveleth, they would run up to the bar, a block up the hill. On the bar stools were the cynics and critics, and most of them were in the Hall of Fame.
You go into Virginia and see a picture of Bob Harrington, or go into Hibbing and see a picture of Mike Polich, and it starts to kind of resonate with you, like, wow, there's some huge names that are skating on the same ice sheet that I am. It definitely had a historical aspect to it, especially when you did walk in and see a picture of Bob Harrington in there and know that Mike Sertich from UMD was from there.
The Hibbing building, a magnificent edifice where they would play the region finals. And I'll never forget the great guy who was there forever as the PA guy. He honestly would say, "Okay, you kids, get off of the rafters." They were literally hanging from the rafters.
But I think just playing in that building in the section final, when it's probably 5,000 or 6,000 people in the building, it was a great atmosphere. And people are hanging from the rafters, and it was a really exciting time.
My favorite was since renamed Hodgson's Berardo in Coleraine. You walked in there and there was never any thought that anything was important except hockey. I mean, you walked in there and there was a nice warm lobby and you got your hot dog or popcorn or coffee. When you went into the rink, it was cold, and they had little walkways that came out over the goals, and that's where the goal judge sat, looking straight down on it.
The goal judges over the ice. Yeah. I mean, there's so many unique things about that building. I love playing there. Hodgson's Berardo Arena in Coleraine is one of my favorite buildings of all time. I started going there when I was really young. The first hockey school I ever went to was the Greenway Hockey School run by Bob Jernander. I loved playing there. I don't know what it was. And watching, it was always fun to go to the other side because you got to go across the catwalk.
Didn't matter how it looked. What mattered was the game. The ice was great, the game was great, and that was just a fantastic place to watch.
Oh, sorry, I got frozen. It's a little stiff. Well, it's frozen, Bob. My dad started the rink in 1947. He put it in the backyard at 1941, where the garden is, and then that wasn't big enough, so he moved it to the front yard, and that wasn't big enough, so then in 1946 or 47, he bought the lot across the street. And we used the hydrant. The fire department gave us the hoses, and we used the hydrant to flood it, and it was a very easy deal.
There it is. Oh boy. This is going to be the 70th year. I started doing this when I was 10 years old. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but we continually do it. The kids continue to skate. It was all done on volunteers. Volunteer shoveling, volunteer flooding, and lots of experiences, and we all learned how to flood, good or bad. Nonetheless, the kids were all part of it. Shoveling snow was part of it.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Pull the hose a little bit here, will you, Bob?
Yeah.
Hey, Robert?
Yeah.
Pull that hose.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Pull a little bit, Bob. He's ice. One time I went and looked on a book on ice, and the Russians had about 15 volumes on ice, and I learned a lot.
This is the home we grew up in right here. Yeah, 1941 Waverly Avenue.
The back hall was a changing room, but my mother would put on lunch, and the kids said, "Mrs. Freiberger, do I have to take my skates off?" And she said, "No, as long as you walk without sliding on the oriental rugs, which would have ruined the rugs. Everybody has to just take a simple step, and make sure you don't push off like you're skating. And so the kids would, you'd have 15 kids there with skates on underneath the table. After a big snowstorm, my mother and father, or my mother particularly, would get phone calls. Is the rink cleared? Oh yeah, it's all done, boys. You can come on over and you can play. Well, there was still 2 feet of snow, but he said, why don't you just grab a shovel and you can clear it off. He said, your mom fooled us in getting out here. But
my name is Steve Noldine. I grew up a couple blocks away from here at the Freiburger ice rink, and I used to skate here about 25, 30 years ago, all the time with my friends. And I live out of state now, and I was able to come back home just after Christmas this year with my family, and I was able to bring my son here and bring him up here to the rink where I spent a good part of my youth playing hockey and learning how to skate.
I see these kids enjoying it and laughing and falling down and getting up and chasing the puck and passing it and so forth, and so it brings back all sorts of great memories. And
it's almost exactly as I remember it. They changed the light up on the pole, but otherwise you can still turn it on and off yourself. You can come out here at night and clean the rink off and have a great time.
I think we gotta shut her off.
okay.
Whoa! Hey! Hey! Wrong way! Wrong way! I was so impressed with my wrench, I wasn't paying attention. You hung on to it, though. Well, yeah. I couldn't have held on too much longer.
The eyes of college hockey on Amsoil Arena. Welcome in Bulldog Hockey on 92.1 The Fan on the Red Rock Radio Bulldog Sports Network. It is 1 versus 2. The second-ranked UMB Bulldogs at home to take on the #1 undefeated defending national champion Fighting Hawks from the University of North Dakota.
Growing up in Duluth, we had season tickets for the Bulldogs. We came every night we could, and so I fell in love with the team, and yeah, I guess ever since I can remember, it's always been a dream to play here.
Now Pullman center. He'll go back to the left. Down low, Polganski and back. Besser on the right. Besser gives on the goal line, centering pass. Oh, what a save, Miska!
My name's Dominic Toninato. I'm from Duluth, Minnesota. Played here my whole life except for 1 year.
I think it's a fun age group to coach. I think the guys are very motivated. You know, they obviously want to continue to play beyond college at the highest level, and you know, our job here is to make sure they have a real good experience. I think we tell everyone, you know, we want you to come in and at the end be a better hockey player, but more importantly, a better person. And I think when you leave there, you're ready for maybe the next step, whether it's hockey or life.
Now Kuhlman's going to carry to center.
We got a hook.
Coming up
Yeah, we got a hook. Yep.
Kuhlman over the line. Kuhlman scored! Hey! Kuhlman! And the Bulldogs have scored first!
I remember my dad would bring us down and we'd watch, and I thought how cool it would be to play here, and I didn't really realize it was a real possibility until I got later on in my hockey career. My name's Carson Coleman. I'm from Esco, Minnesota. Short drive here from Duluth. I grew up playing in Esco and then made the switch over to Cloquet.
I know we've been pretty fortunate to have a lot of great kids in the program, and makes it a lot of fun, and hardworking kids, kind of blue collar, just like our area, and they kind of take on that temperament too.
Oh, UMD was always #1. They're first option. Obviously, growing up watching them, they were my favorite team. My dad played here, so once I got the opportunity, I jumped right on it, and you know, it was a dream come true. My name is Adam Johnson. I'm from Hibbing, Minnesota. Grew up playing there my whole life. Then played a couple years in Sioux City, and now here in my second year at UMD.
Jared Thomas on the right wing. Good work by Susie to keep it in. Now Susie scores! Carson Susie let it go, right circle. Power play goal, it's 2-0.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've never really been on a winning team like this before, like a #1 team. So It's really exciting for the guys, and I think we have a really good group here and something special, so hopefully we can keep it going and you know, stay up top.
15 in the period, penalty time about to expire. Landon kept it in, shot blocked by Spurl. Osmus to keep it in. Back this way to Landon, off is sticking out to center. Here comes Exel the other way. 3 seconds in the period. Exel in the middle for Spurl. A shot, he put it wide, and the period is over. And listen to this ovation for the Bulldogs.
I grew up a Bulldog fan, and obviously playing in northern Minnesota, your favorite school is UMD, and that was a dream to play here. My name's Jared Thomas from Hermantown, Minnesota. I played high school in Hermantown. I'm currently a junior here at UMD. Obviously the facility is one of the top of the line arenas in the country. But yeah, it's just a great place to come every day and lace up the skates and play a game that you love.
Obviously when you come here and you see what, you know, the players have, and you know, the guts of the rink is important to us where we spend our time, and you know, they have a lot of things that the deck didn't have.
It's a big recruiting factor for people. You know, it's one of the best rinks I think around, and having such a new facility I think is a big help, and it, you know, it makes it great. A lot of fun to play here.
Oh, I love it. Our facilities here are top of the line. Obviously our student section and crowd is great too, and it's great to pack this place.
I think the people are on top of you, and I think the atmosphere is good.
And to KUHLMAN in the middle. KUHLMAN walks in, down low, centering pass, breaks up, they score! It's Osterberg, shorthanded, 3-0 Bulldogs!
My whole 4 years here have been pretty special and memorable. Like I said, I dreamed of being a Bulldog since I was young, and that dream came true, and now to be able to captain the team is something really special.
That's why this year is so much fun. We're having some success, and that just makes it that much better.
The great prize in it all is when people see it and it means something to them. Since I was a little boy, that's all I wanted to do was draw. I loved it. So my name is Tim Cortez, and I am what I call a commemorative sports artist. Sports art is not the only thing I do, but it's about 90% of my work. And how it works is a group will give me a call, say, look, we're celebrating this, a coach's retirement, national championship, anniversary, and they'll hire me to do artwork to commemorate that event. My older brother Mike is a goaltender, and he started at Portman at 5 years old, and immediately became a goaltender when one of the other kids was sick. So me, I had to follow what my brother was doing. I loved playing goalie, and that's it. I got started at the local rink here. I just remember putting them on and just not taking them off. And I just stayed out there, I didn't care how cold it was. I just loved taking shots. And I did all the way up until 2 years ago. I just couldn't get enough, so.
Once a goalie, always a goalie.
Always a goalie. Now I'm coaching them, and I love that. As I got back into coaching goaltending, I took some time off, a few years, and then Mike asked me if I was interested to coach at East. And of course I was. I had two things I wanted to do. I wanted to play in the NHL. I didn't do that. And I said, when I'm done with that, I'm going to be a commercial artist. And the first professional job that I did was a picture of Lou Nanne. He was going in the Hall of Fame in Eveleth, and they said, hey, will you do this for us? And so I did it. And what it is it's still life, really. I get the artifacts and the stuff from the organization. I set it up in my other room, start taking pictures. I just take pictures with my phone. So that's the process. I just take those pictures, find my artboard, and I just sketch it out the way I see it. And it's very meticulous work, but I'm used to it. I've done probably 2,000 pictures in the last 20 years. I'm the worst gauger of time. After all the pictures that I do, I have a guy in my head that says, you got time, don't worry about it. you can always finish it in the last 48 hours. You know, the stuff like this is really a brain game sometimes. You really got to be accurate to do a medal from the state tournament. That takes a lot of time and precision, you know, and sharp pencils. I love drawing trophies. It's a challenge, and I love to do it. And old jerseys, I could draw them all day long. This is my rink that I grew up at, and later on in life I was the rink director there. So I was really, really happy when they decided they wanted to do this. I have a few of my own artifacts in there, which I told them right off. I said, hey, if I'm doing this, I'm putting my first goalie mask in there. So that was my first goalie mask. That was my jersey. It's my brother's jacket. And this just is very, very special. This was done when UMD, back in 2011, won the national championship. First national championship they ever had. What they did with this and another one that I did for the women's is they blew them up to about 6 feet and framed them. So when you walk in the entrance, the players' entrance at Adams Oil Arena, on the women's side, you have their national championship, huge. On the men, you have this. And I'm very, very proud of that. I did one for Gordie Howe when he got put into the Hall of Fame, and going and meeting them at the hotel, taking a bunch of pictures with them. They were so blown away that somebody could do that. The wife starts crying, and that's a home run to me when people do that, and that was pretty special for me.
Here we honor those that have made the contributions to make American hockey what it is today, and it really is great today. I'm Doug Palazzari, the Executive Director of the United States Hockey Hall of Fame Museum. Hockey is all over the country now. We have great athletes playing in all the states. The players are coming from everywhere. We're on par with any hockey playing country in the world now, and that's something that's taken a lot of years to accomplish.
To have it here is totally appropriate because of all the history that Evelyn has with hockey. And then when you start going around the place and realizing the huge history that there is in not only Minnesota but in the United States of hockey.
I love that it's in Evelyn. You know, as much as people would want to see it in the Twin Cities or maybe in their town on the range, I love that it's in Evelyn. Just for the tie to the Hippodrome, the tie to John Mariucci, the ties to Johnny Masic, who may have been the greatest college player of all time.
This area is one of the birthplaces of hockey in our country, and they've been playing here since the late 1800s, early 1900s. So it's really in the culture up here, and Evelyn just happened to have, I think, the facilities ahead of other people and other places, and a lot of really good athletes. Evelyn's had an indoor rink since the early 1900s. You know, the current Hippodrome that's there was built, I think, in about 1922, and there was a previous indoor rink before that.
The Evelyn Hippodrome is a cathedral of high school hockey in Minnesota when you start to think about how long it's been there and some of the people that have come through there.
Inside that Evelyn Hippodrome, it's like a shrine. You know, it's just beautiful. Any kid that lives here that walks in here would like to be up on that wall one day. Evelyn has an incredible culture of hockey here. And people love it. You know, they're all fans of the sport from little kids up through the NHL.
Evelyn was a hockey factory, and every generation had 1, 2, or 3, even more significant players that came from Evelyn. You'd walk into the Hippodrome in Evelyn, and you'd see a picture of John Masic and a picture of John Mariucci and a picture of, you know, whoever the player may be, Doug Palazzari.
In the 60 Olympics, of course, you have John Masic from Evelyn. In the 56 Olympics, you had John Matchefs and Masic and Willard Eichala all playing, and the coach was John Mariucci, all from Evelyn.
And so this place is just a wonderful mecca. And when people do come here, they say, wow, is that ever a great place?
Walking in and seeing the wall with all the NHL logos was cool, and the never-ending loop of the 1980 Olympic game against the Soviet Union was cool.
We have a lot of nice video presentations. The kids love to shoot pucks. We've got a couple of shooting areas. So everybody's a little bit different of what they enjoy.
I wish more people would take the time to make the trip up there and see that, because for the game in the United States, it's such a significant piece of our history.
If you like American hockey, this is a place to go. Growing up here in Eveleth, all the youngsters wanted to play hockey. We played as kids outside all the time. You got into the Hippodrome on Saturday mornings. The rest of your hockey was all outdoors.
The sticks in my day, the most expensive stick was a $2.50 Northland Pro. And I'll tell you, when you had one of those, you made sure you took good care. But there was one that you could buy for 75 cents.
Back when I was a kid and the National Hockey League only had 6 teams, it was not on television. We'd rarely see a National Hockey League game.
Frank Brimsek, Caracas. These guys, at the time, you know, there's only 6 teams in the NHL, and like 3 of them had goalies from the Iron Range, you know, from Eveleth.
Trying to get kids to skate and be outside and have fun and enjoy the outdoors. That's what this is all about.
It puts a smile on my kid's face and every other kid's face out there. So that's why we do it, for kids.
In Duluth is the only place in North America where there's actually little kids leagues that still play outside. That's amazing.
I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and Dad came home with all new hockey gear and tossed it on me in the basement, and I absolutely hated it. Brought me to the rink, couldn't skate obviously, absolutely hated it, but he just kept telling me to keep going, keep trying, and keep getting back up, and finally learned how to skate, and ever since then I fell in love with the game.
I think when I look back on it, the one thing I loved more than anything was just the feeling of scoring a goal and contributing to your team winning a game.
You know, the games are forgotten, the trophies are stored away, but the character you build playing this wonderful game is, there's nothing like it, absolutely nothing like it.
Funding for Minnesota Hockey, Land of 10,000 Rinks is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.